Hello, DeMatha Nation. Welcome again, once again, to our 75th anniversary speaker series. My name is Connor Glowacki, current staff member here at DeMatha. I'm joined today by staff member and 2011 DeMatha alum Ben Fleri and retired U.S. Marine and Vietnam veteran Steve Greene, DeMatha class of 1961, who will both assist in conducting today's event. Steve enlisted in the Marines in 1966. In December of that year, Steve landed in Vietnam and was part of the buildup to what would become the height of that conflict, which did not officially end until, as we all know, 1975. Prior to Steve's deployment, he received a Purple Heart when wounded at the time his company commander was killed in action. At the end of Steve's tour, the 3rd Battalion 26 Marines were directed to support the Con Thien combat base. They arrived in the area on September 5th, 1967, and after 5 days of intense fighting, it's fair to say the North Vietnamese Regiment no longer existed, and the 3rd Battalion, 26 Marines, needed to be reconstituted as a battalion. Steve received a Bronze Star with a combat need for his actions during this time frame. Steve's deployment eventually ended, and he returned to school upon coming back to his country. In 1968, he joined the DEA, only to return to Vietnam as a special agent in October 1971. Steve served 28 years in the DEA, not only as the acting administrator on several occasions, but also served as a deputy administrator, which requires a presidential appointment for over five years. Steve was honored as DeMatha's Distinguished Alumnus back in 1993. Our goal for this week's DeMatha Speaker Series is to check in with our stags in the military, both past and present, have them tell us a little bit about themselves, where you are or were stationed, and to share a story or two. So we'd like to begin with Steve Greene, and then we'd like to open up to the floor, as Ben mentioned earlier, to the audience and to allow our military alums to share their story. So as Ben mentioned, if you'd like to participate, and we already see a couple people doing so we appreciate it, just indicate in the chat bar below. There should be a green chat button icon at the bottom of your screen. Press that, and then just let us know, type your message, let us know in the chat bar, and we'll call on you. With that all being said, thank you very much for attending. And with that, I'd like to toss it over to Steve Greene, the DeMatha class of 1961.
Well, thank you, Connor. I want to tell you how honored and proud I am to be asked to participate in this. And I want to compliment you on your non-veteran, non-Marine haircut, which I like. But I'm going to start off by maybe just tweaking your instructions a little bit. And I'm hopefully not going to spend much time on myself, but I was going to put something I've been thinking about in the lab. Well, I've been thinking about it a good while, but something the president did the other day brought it to my attention. But before I start, I'll remember some guidance I was always given before making speeches, and it would be, Steve, you're never as funny as you think you are. And secondly, you'll never have to apologize for brevity. So I'll try and keep those in mind as we move on. But what I wanted to bring up was, and I thought of this the day after Tom Ponton called and asked me to become involved in this. It was either that day or the day after. The president announced, and my flash went off, but if you can hear me, still signal. The president announced that our engagement, our war in Afghanistan is going to end after 20 years. 20 years. And it's just, to me, that's just incredible that not that it ended, that we were there in a war for 20 years. And I think back, I don't think there's any students at DeMatha, I may be off for the few seniors, I don't think there's any students at DeMatha that were even born when this war started. Just incredible, and I go back, and the other thing that's just perfectly clear in all this is all done by a voluntarily military, and which is really started after conscription ended in 1973, I think. And then from then on, we've had an all volunteer military service. And before I offend anybody, I think personally, we have the finest military. We have the most well-educated military, the most highly trained military. But somehow, I don't think many Americans got skin, and I don't want to call it a game, but skin in the game when you think back, and I'm pretty sure you can check me on my statistics, the percent of the US population that had anything to do with Iraq and Afghanistan is barely 1%. And so it's, well, what obligations do people have to their country in this thing? Well, not many. And people go, you know, so you're asking people to serve in a war for 20 years that could last, and they go, well, they asked for it, they volunteered. That's all true, but I have problems with that being really fair or equitable, or what a government should demand from its citizens. But and I'm not whining about it because I didn't have to do, but I sometimes think this country ought to ask a little bit more from its citizens. And another thing that brought the day after, or the day Tom called, I happened to be at Arlington and for the burial service of one of my Marine Corps colleagues from Vietnam. Fortunately, he made it back, but he died as a lieutenant colonel, and they had the full service for him. And my parents are interred at Arlington, so I'm there occasionally, but I'll stop by and see a Vietnam colleague that didn't make it out. But I always try and stop by one of DeMatha's heroes, one of DeMatha's just great students and men. And that's Brendan Looney. And I knew Brendan, but I didn't know him very well. I know his family very well. Great family, just great Americans. But I thought I knew where Brendan was interred, so I go down there and I look for 30 minutes and I could not find the gravesite. And I go, geez, I know where it was. I know the intersecting road. It was, you know, a row or two back from this. So after 30 minutes, I found the row. And remember, this is section 60, where primarily for sure the Afghanistan veterans that made the ultimate sacrifice are buried, and a lot of the Iraq veterans that died in the Iraq war buried. And what's just struck me, in front of Brendan's grave is row after row after row of new burials. And this is all part, well, did people sacrifice much in the 20-year war? A lot of them did. And a lot of them made the ultimate sacrifice. And I wish our country is, I'm sure they respect it, but not many people just are aware of it. It's not, they're not involved in this. So, and I'll stop whining, but I am eternally grateful for the people that, and particularly after 1973, when you didn't have to join the military and you decided to. I think you need to know, so when you're speaking, if you want to comment on that or tell me I'm full of beans, feel free. I'm thick-skinned. But both Ben and Connor asked me would I comment on my Vietnam experience. I did enlist in the Marines in 1996, and people have often told, wow, you must have really thought your country needed you. And I had a deferment at the time. I had 3 deferments. 1966, excuse me. I had 3 deferments, but believe me, the draft board was hot after my young behind. So about 3 years prior, 2 of my closest friends, we all met at Fred's Inn down by St. Anthony's, and we decided in the next 2 days, we would join the Marine Corps because we were all going nowhere in our scholastic life. So, and we would regroup out there at Fred's on Friday night. Well, they joined, and I decided I had not met all my social objectives, and nor had I met very few of my academic. I'm not going in the Marines. So, well, that enraged their families, their friends, and these guys are tough guys. They never let me forget it. So in 1966, when I knew I had to do something, I think, maybe I'll try to reserve. I just couldn't do it. So that's how I ended up in the Marines. And people ask, I'm going to skip the things that Connor highlighted. I served in interesting times. It was clearly when you went in, you were going to be cannon fodder. And most services did 12 months, but the Marines always thought, well, they do 12, we'll do 13. Go figure. But people ask, was it worth it? I can't answer that. Would I do it again? Yes. Was the experience great? Yes. It's so difficult for me to answer. But I'll give you one example and then I'll close. When I showed up at Parris Island, there were a group of 25 young recruits that had all come from the town of Plattsburgh, New York. Great town. I'm sure a lot of you have heard about it. Well, it's part of Clinton County, New York, upstate New York, right along the border. A tough area, hardcore working people. Well, these 25 guys were all about the same as me, all had some college. And so they decide to join the Marines en masse. 25 is a good number from a small place. Well, the mayor thought it was a great idea. The governor thought it was a great idea. The newspapers ran stories, and they all showed up at Parris Island. And their movement eventually captured an additional 30, 40 more. So a total of 96 people came from this county, the bulk of them from Plattsburgh, New York. And the drill instructors cut them no slack. It was just a group of 25 guys to pound. Well, we graduated, and I never said much about them. I hung out. Well, these guys, we graduated and we stayed as a group pretty much the first 25 and went to Vietnam. Well, within a year, 2 years, 44 of those 96, the total that went over, made the ultimate sacrifice. And so whenever I think, who cares what I think if it was worth it? Just go up to Plattsburgh, which I have done twice, because I was very close to 2 or 3 of these guys. And just ask around, you think that was worth it? And it surely was, because they appreciate America, and when the government asks you to do something, they do it. But they made one hell of a sacrifice. And I'll close by this. I kept my mouth shut, as it's wise to do at Parris Island, but I was born in Plattsburgh, New York. And I never told any of these guys till about the last day when they were finished singling out for additional push-ups that, I was born in Plattsburgh, New York. So I was made an honorary Plattsburgh, New York individual. So in closing, I'll say it again. I'm just so greatly honored what the vets on this call have done, are doing, and the sacrifices you have made. God bless, and I love you all.
Stephen, thank you so much for sharing. Ben and I, obviously, we've never experienced what everybody else on this call has. So it's great to have these kind of events for people, not just us, but everybody out there, in the country and the world who has never served, to learn these experiences. So Stephen, thanks for sharing those remarks, and thank you everybody for, again, attending. And we've got a lot of people commenting in the chat, which is awesome. And we're going to first turn it over to John Farrell. So John, feel free to unmute your mic and share your story.
Thank you for doing this, Steve. I have a special place in my heart for Plattsburgh, New York. My daughter was born Friday the 13th of December, 1985 at Champlain Valley Physicians Hospital, because at that time, Plattsburgh Air Force Base existed. So thanks for your story. Very quickly, John Farrell, class of 78, went in the Air Force on October 10th, 1978 to February 1, 2005. If you're counting, that's 26 years, 3 months, 22 days to be exact. I knew when I graduated from DeMatha that I was not mature enough to succeed in college. So I wasn't going to waste my parents' money, but I knew that I was going to use that GI Bill. So I'm very thankful, because when I left 26 years later, I walked with my MBA. So I'm very happy with that. Air Force experiences, had a lot of Middle Eastern time, a lot of desert time. I had the privilege of putting feet in all 50 states of the United States of America and most countries throughout the world. When I hung up the uniform, I went to work for Fortune 500 companies as an HR executive. And then I never pushed religion, but this to me proves that there's a God. About 6 years ago, I simply bumped into this person. I looked up, and he was a three-star general that I worked for. And he goes, John, you need to come over and check out the Air Force Aid Society. And if you're familiar with that, we are the official charity of the United States Air Force. We take care of airmen in distress. For my other service members, that's people like Navy, Marine Corps Relief, Coast Guard Mutual Aid Society, Army Emergency Relief. So I came over, and I was blessed to be hired on the spot. And I'm the #2 Chief Operating Officer of the Air Force Aid Society. I love what I do because I'm taking care of airmen. What does DeMatha mean to me? And then I'll turn it over to the next person. If I had $1 for every time I've worn gear and been running down the street, I'm a marathon runner, and somebody stopped me, and I'm talking places in the Middle East, Germany, Italy, all throughout America, and said, hey, man, DeMatha, I know that. Did you play basketball? And I said, I'm 5'10". No, I didn't play basketball. What else did you do? I said, well, I'm a musician. So, oh, okay. People always ask me, what does DeMatha mean to you? And it's very easy to answer. I said, it set me up for success in life. It gave me all the establishments of the brotherhood, all the establishments of being prepared for life. I am deeply satisfied with massive gratitude to DeMatha for setting me up for that. People say, wow, I understand you have all that affinity towards DeMatha. What about your undergraduate degree and your graduate degree? Yeah, I'm happy with those. But I got to tell you guys, DeMatha set me up for success. And lastly, I just want to share, my dad passed away May 28th, and I shared this with my classmate, Tom Ponton. He enlisted at 16 in the United States Army and went to fought in Korea. He lied to the recruiter. Back then, they didn't really check records much. A year later, after he was awarded his Purple Heart because he was a combat medic, they said, you're 17 years old. You're not even supposed to be in the United States Army. Your mother needs to sign a waiver. She signs a waiver. He continues for 3 years, gets out, comes back home to Washington, D.C., and works for 18 months in the Washington printing plant. And then I like to say wised up, re-enlisted, crossed over to the blue, and served 17 more years as an F-4 pilot in the United States Air Force. And what I'm going to do on May 15th, the first time in 16 years, fortunately, I'm still lean enough to do it. I'm going to put my service dress uniform, and we're going to give him those military honors that he's earned. So I appreciate the time, guys. I've spoken up. Thank you very much for allowing me the opportunity to speak. God bless all of you.
Thank you, John. And again, thank you, Steve, and all the veterans for being on this call. It's quite the honor to be on the call with you guys, and we can't thank you enough for your service for our country. So thank you so much, and we're very grateful to have you guys. The next speaker, I think we'll go with Tom Callahan. So Tom, if you want to unmute your mic and speak. Thank you.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, my buddy, Steve Greene, he and I graduated out of the same class of 1961. And I think, for the record, and I believe I'm correct, I'm the only general officer that DeMatha has graduated. So Ponton, take note of that, because I would like to be recognized at some point for that achievement. But my story sort of starts like Steve. When I graduated from DeMatha, I wasn't on a very good path, and I was causing my parents a lot of difficulties. So I use an analogy of if I didn't make a decision, I think I would have been probably in jail. But aside from that, my next door neighbor was a member of the DC Army National Guard. So he and I had a very close conversation. So I decided to join the DC National Guard in 1964, March of 1964. So I left for basic training to Fort Jackson, South Carolina. And because all of my test scores were so very good, I did my 6 months of basic training, AIT, and so forth and so on, as a military policeman. And just before I was due to come back home to DC, I was approached by the command structure at Fort Gordon, Georgia, with the idea of attending OCS. And I thought long and hard with this decision, and I decided to jump on it. So off I go to Fort Benning, Georgia, and I go to OCS. And 38 years later, I sit here in my lakefront home at Lake Anna, and I look back on that 38 years of great memories and great rewards. And now I'm a brigadier general, sitting fat, dumb, and happy. Now, when, as Steve described, when Vietnam was kicking up in 66 to 73, 74, the Army, because I didn't have my degree, sent me to the schoolhouse. And I missed Vietnam because I was not educated as a second lieutenant. Now I had branch selection because I finished at the top of my class at Benning. So it was infantry, armor, or military police. Now infantry was going across the pond, armor was going across the pond, and I wanted to stick with my branch that I had signed up for, selected military police. So I go to the schoolhouse, I finished my bachelor's degree, and I get assigned to the 60th MP group at that time, they were at Fort Bragg. They were part of the 82nd Airborne. And you know what happened in 1968 in Washington, D.C. and Detroit and all the big cities, they started to burn. So I get assigned to a CID group, and that's primarily where my focus was as the CID supervisor. And that's sort of where my focus started, as a CID agent. And Steve can relate to that as a DEA agent. And that's sort of where I remained until I made full colonel, attended the War College. My plaque is on the War College. But all along that time, with attendance at Leavenworth. Now, when I was with the active forces, I had a decision to make about 1987 when I came up for lieutenant colonel as to whether I was going to make a career of the Army or whether I was going to come back into the reserves. And that's when I decided to come back to the DC National Guard. And that's where I landed. So I have a combination of active duty and reserves. And I came back to the Guard, remained in the Guard, worked for federal government, retired from the Guard, went into the United States Army Reserve, got my promotion to Brigadier General, remained in the government, and went retired from the government in 07. But I can tell you that the military has been a great part of my life. It has formed me as a true leader and a leader of men. DeMatha helped me a great deal in forming me as a DeMatha gentleman. He gave me a great deal of what I took into the Army. It formed me. Mr. Moreland was my guidance counselor. He helped me a great deal. Buck Offit, Morgan Wooten, all of those fine gentlemen helped me along my way. I transferred into DeMatha from John Carroll because I got sick in my junior year at Carroll. And my parents did not like the way that Carroll handled my situation. They allowed me to come into DeMatha in my junior year. And that's where I met all my great friends like Steve Greene, Carl Donnelly, Adam Manis, who was a teacher at DeMatha, Ambrosi.
Really appreciate you sharing. It's great to hear your story and to just thank you for your service.
Thank you.
We want to try to get to everyone if we can, but thank you
so
much for sharing.
We
really appreciate
it.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you very much. Let's go to Leon Michelin. And Leon, you mentioned in the chat that you have a story with you and I believe Marcus Ferran. So go on, Leon.
Oh, thank you. Can you guys hear me okay? Excellent. Okay, I appreciate it. Yeah, DeMatha graduate class of 90. I enlisted in the delayed entry program between my junior and my senior year at DeMatha, and you could pretty much say that, yeah, I wasn't a very smart student. I was really a lazy student. It wasn't that I wasn't smart. It was probably more that I was lazy more than anything. Little known fact, I actually walked across the stage, and DeMatha, I'm so appreciative of them that they allowed me to walk across the stage, but I had to attend summer school my senior year, thus canceling my delayed entry program, where I was going to be an airframe mechanic. And I had to re-enlist into the delayed entry program to DEF for the Marine Corps, and to where I became open communication. So I finished my 3 summer school classes somewhere in the middle of July, and on July 25th, I was standing on the yellow footprints. And I don't regret anything that happened. You know, I was a maintainer for the past 30 years of electronic equipment, everything from radios to satellite communication equipment, so on and so forth. DeMatha is such a small school, and the beauty is The Marine Corps is also the smallest service, and of course I'm biased. I definitely believe it's the best service, but I understand if others don't agree with me from the other services. We're definitely jealous of the Air Force and how they take care of their people. Trust me, we do. We do take note of that. But aside from that, where I'm trying to go with the smallness of it is, I graduated in 1990. At that time, Marcus Ferran was a young sophomore. He just finished up his sophomore year, was an awesome wrestler at DeMatha, as well as a football player and probably a few other sports and so on and so forth. And 1998, I had re-enlisted for a third time, and I find myself in the middle of Thailand. Operation Cobra Gold. And I walk into a shack. I think I'm in Samysan. And I walk into a shack to get something to eat. And there's a barbershop and so on and so forth. This is in the middle of Thailand where there's no military, United States military bases around. These are Thai military. And the way they do things over there is very, very differently. These are mom and pop places, some of the best food that you'll ever have. And I see a face I recognize. I hadn't seen this face in 8 years. I thought this kid was going off to college, was going to be a superstar wrestler. I tried following his, his program, or him through, his collegiate career and so on and so forth. I had just lost touch after a while. And no kidding, Marcus Ferran, I'm a sergeant at that time, and Marcus Ferran sits there before me. And I just was, I don't know if you remember Marcus, but I was like, Marcus Ferran, of all the people in all the places in all the world, what are you doing here? And he's a Lance Corporal, parachute rigger, which basically is the person responsible for packing the parachute. And that kicked off our relationship over the past, now what, 26 or 20 some odd years. Actually, our relationship's obviously longer than that. It's 30 plus some odd years of a relationship, maybe not as close as we are now. So we have a lot of, things that bond us. In addition to that, he's not the only United States Marine from DeMatha that I served with. I walked into my second maintenance shop, and Reginald Holland is a kid who graduated in 1986, I think, and he also went to DeMatha, and he did same MOS as me. So at that time, we were an MOS of about 50 people across the Marine Corps. We're in a lot of satellite systems. We're using Army systems and Navy systems, and there was only a handful of us across the entire Marine Corps fixing these things. So of all the people that I could ever work with, DeMatha, runs a great program trying to get young men into college, and which is awesome. And I admire it, and I cherish everything that I learned while I was at DeMatha. But I just wanted to get on here, share this. I hope we have many more opportunities, especially come November timeframe. Love to see, this group, if not maybe an expanded group, share its stories with, our current students today. Because there's one thing that I take out of the 5 pillars, community. Every service member here has a community. And we in the Marine Corps, we call it a family. Our Marine Corps family is really a replacement for a family. Service, which, everybody who has volunteered to join the service prior to you being voluntold back in the 60s, you chose to serve your country, which I can't think of any finer, choice that anybody could have made. I'm very proud of the choice that I made. And then athletics. I mean, you can't be a United States service member without being physically fit. So I think those are 3 of our main DeMatha pillars and principles that we kind of see in our relationship with our other services. And with that, I'll turn the floor back to whoever's next. Thanks, Ben.
Thank you, Leon, and thank you again for your service. Thank you, Tom Callahan, for your service as well. We got a lot of guys that that are writing in the chat. So I promise we'll try to get to everyone. We may not get to everyone, but I'll try my best. The next person, I think we'll go to Andy Waiters. Andy, go ahead.
Hey, thanks, Ben. I'm happy to be on here with everyone. So I've gotten to do some pretty cool stuff as part of Brigadier General Callahan. I'm currently a serving member of the DC National Guard. So I've gotten to do some pretty cool stuff that's pretty, I think, unique with the National Guard. And my name, Staff Sergeant Andy Waiters. I enlisted in 2008 as part of the 257th Army Band. So I'm one of, I think there's a good amount of military musicians out there from DeMatha. So as part of that time, I've kind of moved away from, the band field, and I'll tell you what I'm doing now. But again, 2008, joined the 257th, and kind of moved into a position where I managed operations and marketing for the band. Kind of set up all of our summer concerts, worked with venues in the DC area to get our name out there and whatnot, and then managed our social media. And then also I drum majored the band down Constitution Avenue when we were marching in the Independence Day Parade. So I know I'm one of at least 2 DeMatha alums that have drum majored down Constitution Avenue. The other one is Sergeant Major Julian Ayers, who was at Pershing Zone, the United States Army Band at Arlington, Virginia. DeMatha definitely set me up to get into the Army and to serve as a musician. So that's one of the additional pillars that I took from DeMatha and took into the Army. So which is the art side of it. So if you're not aware, the United States Army is the biggest employer of musicians in the world. So I'm definitely happy to be part of that. For the last 3 years, I moved to the National Guard Bureau. So I'm part of the Title 10 active duty program at the National Guard Bureau. So with all the stuff that's happened in the past year, I was not activated as part of the civil disturbance response and all that stuff. But the National Guard, as you may be aware, has been more visible than ever before in its history in the last year. So happy to be part of the National Guard when it has that visibility. So in my time at the National Guard Bureau, I am part of the marketing team, which falls under recruiting. So in the past 3 years, I've gotten to do 2 national ad campaigns for the National Guard. So as part of that, I was part of the rollout of the new Army National Guard logo, which is more in line with the U.S. Army logo. So kind of just making people more aware that we are part of the Army and that we are part of the military. Because, I tell people sometimes that I'm in the National Guard and they're like, were you ever part of the military? I am part of the military. So I've gotten to be part of the logo rollout. And then in December, we went to Los Angeles to film the new ad campaign, which is called The Next Greatest Generation Is Now. So you may have seen it out there on TV. It was really out there for part of March Madness. And then the one before that we did was called Hometown Soldier. So just kind of leaning on the fact that, most of the people in our force serve where, in the hometown that they're from, and, they serve in their community. So that's been one of the big things for me, is being able to serve in my community. It's that's one of the reasons that a lot of people join the National Guard, is to be able to serve in the community that they are from, and to be able to see the changes that they make in the communities that they are from. So it's definitely been a great I think 13 years. So I'm definitely looking forward to completing my career, 20-year career as part of the National Guard.
Thank you so much, Andy, for sharing. That's great to hear. Let's go next to Rich Williams. I believe he's DeMatha class of '84.
What's up, you guys? Hi, Rich Williams. Nice to talk to you. Just, I guess, real quick, I am 84 grad from DeMatha, and after DeMatha, I went right into the Air Force. I went to the Air Force Academy. So I'm thankful for DeMatha for giving me the opportunity to do that. I was 4 years at the Academy, and then I went to flight school for the Air Force. And I always like visuals, so I flew these airplanes. These are KC-10 tankers. And I currently fly for Delta Airlines, this airplane, the 757, out of Los Angeles. Also working in the Air Force, went to change from the flying stuff to do systems acquisition, which is working with satellites. I'm based in Los Angeles and just finishing out a job at the Pentagon as a chief of international engagement, where we deal with all our foreign partners and talk to the Israelis and the South Koreans and all the people that want drones and all these other things that the Air Force, that the United States has to offer. I'm going to be moving out to Los Angeles. They picked me up to do a job in the Space Force again. So I'm going to be a guardian. They don't call us warriors. They call us guardians in the Space Force. So I'll be doing Space Force stuff. And we are, the big race is with China and Russia, and we're fighting them with satellites and missiles and all that. When you look at your phones, the GPS, we're responsible for those satellites, putting those satellites up and monitoring those types of things. So really cool. I feel very humbled to be in this audience behind Brigadier General Callahan and Steve Greene and all these phenomenal people, and Andy. You guys, in my mind, are real soldiers. So I appreciate your all service, and I can see some really great people on the call. So I'm just gonna kind of stop there. I appreciate everything. I know there's a lot of people that want to talk and share. So thanks a lot for your time. And again, we're raising a very strong Catholic family. Our kids are all still in the church, and you know, that's been a benefit to us. And I really thank DeMatha for setting the stage for that. God bless you all.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Rich. Let's go to, I hope I'm saying your last name right, James Troche, if you want to go ahead and speak. Your microphone might be on mute, James. Let's see. James Troche. Okay, if not, no worries. I had a few guys reach out to me. Emmett Lauer, if you want to unmute your mic, Emmett, and share your story. Emmett you have to unmute your mic, Emmett. Sorry. Okay, guess that's not working.
Hey Ben, I got somebody while we're waiting.
Okay.
I think I saw in the chat that Eric Gunn, I'm at the class of 87. So Eric, if you would like to talk, feel free to unmute your mic.
Great. Thanks for having me, Connor. Yeah, I'm actually calling in from Bahrain tonight. So I'm in the 30th year of my career. I am a Navy. I've been in the Navy almost all my life. Well, my dad was Navy, and we moved around every couple of years. And DeMatha was actually my third high school. I did my junior and senior year there. Did wind ensemble. I was on the very first swim team at DeMatha, where I think the tryout consisted of just swimming across the pool. So I made that all right. And I went to Navy ROTC, University of San Diego, small Catholic college there, and did my 4 years at sea. I got out, but I missed kind of that affinity group that we've all felt at DeMatha, just having the great culture to work with and within. And I wanted to get back and went into the reserves. I've been called up 6 times since then. So I'm working in my 17th year of active duty and wrapping it up here, and I'll be retired next February. So it's been a great ride. I've done a lot of, in addition to that, like Rich, I worked at the Pentagon as a Navy, unlike him as a Navy civilian. So we've probably seen each other in the Panda Express line now and then, right? But had great times there as well, working in strategy and policy on the OpNav staff. So been all around, and I've just been completely honored and very fortunate to have come through a place like DeMatha, where really they do, help form the rest of our lives and give us a great foundation to expand from. And then go in the military and be just around awesome human beings like all of you on the call tonight. We all serve in our own way and make part of this organization run, and it's been a privilege to be doing part of it for 30 years, and I'll be back home in October. But thanks for letting me talk from Bahrain, and it's great checking in tonight. Thanks very much.
Awesome. Thank you, Eric. We'll go to Mr. Moreland, Kevin Moreland. If you want to unmute your mic and go ahead and speak.
Greetings to everybody. Story about my dad first. Most of you, I'm sure, all of you, I think, lived through his tenure, and go back to 1954 when he graduated from college. He had to do his 2 years of active duty in the Army, spent about 13 months of it on the island of Saipan. And it was many years later before I figured out exactly what he was doing. When he got out in 56, he had worked with some guys in the CIA, and they asked him to come to work for them. A GS-12 was about a 24, 25-year-old sergeant in the Army. And he turned that down and chose to go into education and got hired at DeMatha. Had he gone to the CIA, he'd probably made a little more money, and I would have not had more money to go to college, and not had Don Clark, I believe, talk to him about Army ROTC, and that's where I ended up at the University of Virginia. Moved on to 20 years active duty in the Corps of Engineers. Wasn't brilliant, retired as a major, but I've been working for the Army as a civilian with Army INSCOM for the last 21 years. And as it turns out, it took me, when I finally got to INSCOM, to figure out what exactly my dad was doing. And I work with the same type of people nowadays. I'm not an Intel guy. I'm a log support guy now for INSCOM, but he was doing work as a linguist, just like many of the Intel folks that I know and work with today. So how fate lined everything up, he chose DeMatha over the CIA and the Intel world, and that led to my Army career and current Army civilian career. So been a great run. In my chat, I mentioned I've actually been more quote fun places than as a civilian when I was on active duty, having been spent time in Iraq, Abu Ghraib prison on the outside, Afghanistan, Kuwait, as recently as 2019. Still going. I'm trying now to get people and stuff home, hopefully starting to pull out of Afghanistan based on the president's guidance. And thanks to all of you, obviously my DeMatha start, what it taught me, I had a little bit of parental guidance as I entered DeMatha. So, but nevertheless, many of the things you talked about, I experienced and still experience to this day. And a couple funny notes. I heard the swimmer mention he was one of the first swim teams. And so I'm sure he heard my dad's joke many times about we're just glad they don't drown. Band members, one of my most interesting, one of my last tours on active duty was as an inspector general for the military district of Washington. And I got to listen to some complaints from some of the members of Pershing's Own, and found them to be an interesting collection of folks. A little bit of an ego amongst them, but so that was something I noted. And as I said, Don, thank you for 41 years later. I truly believe in it. It was good to see you there, and I popped into my head. I don't remember the full level of the conversations, but that was a great opportunity. And thanks to everybody for your service, and I've enjoyed this a bunch. And Dad had a little piece of this too. Now I'm catching myself choking up a little bit. Obviously, we lost him in January, and we miss him a great deal, and I know DeMatha misses him a great deal too. So thanks to everybody who's I've seen comments and remembrances and on Facebook and everything else. So thanks very much to everybody. Have a great day. Ben, back to you.
Hey, thanks, Kevin. Thanks for sharing. We unfortunately have only time for one more, but we're going to be doing a similar event like this again around Veterans Day in November. So just if you're follow DeMatha on social media, and we'll share details out again. But we'll call on one more person here, and that'll be Daniel Finnan. So go ahead, Daniel.
Hey, everybody. So my name is Daniel Finan, graduate in 95. Went to St. Mary's College afterwards and just kind of bounced around, kind of living kind of a crazy life. But then I enlisted in the Navy, and I like to say I fell ass backwards into Navy air crew, which I think is one of the coolest jobs there is in the Navy. You get to wear flight suits, the cool Tom Cruise flight jackets and all. And so it was a really good experience. I got to travel around the world, lived in Japan for 3 years, and toured around on the USS Enterprise. I was actually ship's company, which is weird for an Airedale, but I volunteered for it, and got to live that life for a little while. Been in the reserve since 2010 to now. Haven't had to go in for over a year, which is why I have this beard. It's the first time my wife has ever seen me with a beard because I met her when I was in the Navy. So it's kind of cool. But I've done a lot. I've gone through a lot. I've had some great experiences in the Navy, met some of the great people. But DeMatha really did kind of set the stage for it all. And it's always kind of been lingering there in the background behind everything that I've done, to the point that we moved back to this area so we could be near my family and my wife's family and have our kids grow up near them. But so just recently, my son got old enough to join, to select a high school, and we started looking around at different places, and he just fell in love with DeMatha. So I have a son now at DeMatha, he's a freshman. He just made the baseball team. His first game is against Good Counsel tomorrow. So it's pretty cool. Second generation at DeMatha. And he was like, he was looking around and he was applying to different schools, he was like, if I get into DeMatha, my son's going to DeMatha. So it looks like we might have 3 generations there at some point in the next, hopefully not too soon. But it's definitely been the foundation upon which everything else has been built. And so while the military has done a ton for me, I'm currently an international relations specialist at the FDA, working on setting policy across the entire agency, across all of our different centers. All of this originated with DeMatha, and kind of the camaraderie that you find there, the kind of family type environment that you find there, and the sense of pride that you have in that one DeMatha idea, where you only have, was it like 25, 30,000 people from the entirety from the start of DeMatha. And I'm like, I'm one of them. And so now my son's one of them as well. So it's he's on a good path. And I think that the next 3 years at DeMatha is really gonna set him up well for success.
Thanks, Daniel. We're excited that your son's off to a great start here at DeMatha. Hopefully he and the baseball team get a win tomorrow. Be very exciting there. So thanks for everybody for joining. Once again, we thank you all for your service. You are all real life heroes, and it has been great to have everybody on this call and to share some stories. Thanks again, Steve, to you, the Steve Greene, for joining us and sharing your story. Before we go, I wanted to toss it off to, we call coach here at DeMatha, Jim Turk. Jim has a message. So Jim, go ahead and unmute your mic.
Trying to start video too, but never mind. I'm better off not being seen. So I'm going to play, and stick around if you want to. I'm going to play Army, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard, and Navy. And some of you don't know that DeMatha has a fight song, but that's going to be the last one. Okay, here we go. This is to the Army. God bless you. Thank you very much for your service. Go Stags.
Thank you, Coach.
And
You're
to
very welcome.
everybody, thanks for performing, and everybody, thanks for joining us once again. We'll be back next week with another Zoom, and we will do something similar to this with our military alums again near Veterans Day in November. Thank you again for all your service, all your ultimate sacrifice to this country. We here at DeMatha appreciate it. And stay safe, everybody. Until then, go Stags.
Take
Go
care.
Stags. Thank you, guys.